what's up, guys? It is Brian, and I'm sure most of you guys saw my short earlier talking about how the channel is going through some changes. This is my friend Carissa. We talked about it, and we're gonna kind of use this as a place to talk about nerd stuff and more serious stuff. It's gonna be kind of like a podcasty type channel, mostly nerd stuff because that's what me and Carissa like to talk about the most. And we decided that the first episode should be Twilight themed. So, uh, basically the reason why I'm doing this is because on my Yu-Gi-Oh channel I had a show called Behind the Screen, and I had some Yu-Gi-Oh people get mad at me because I tried to talk about things that don't just affect Yu-Gi-Oh specifically, but the broader gaming community, and they didn't handle that very well. So I just said, you know what, we'll come over here and we'll talk about it because this channel kind of already talks about multiple topics anyway. And death battles maybe aren't going away forever, but they're definitely going to be they're going to be a few in between thing until I can figure out a better way to do them. And then Carissa here is a big fan of Twilight, so that's why we're going to talk about it for the first episode. So since the video I was supposed to make on this channel last was supposed to be Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer versus Edward, we're going to talk about that a little bit, and then we're going to go into more interesting topics in the Twilight verse. So, Carissa, Edward or Spike, who wins?
Edward.
Obviously. Obviously.
They're literally made out of diamonds. What is he supposed to do? I mean, I know I haven't seen it, but I know I have seen Twilight, and basically, the Twilight vampires are the Supermans of the vampire universe, you know?
Yeah.
They're just designed to be indestructible, so there isn't really, like, a way to compete with that.
I almost spit out my coffee when you called them the Supermans of the vampire universe. I almost
I mean, that's the equivalent.
Mm-hmm. Alright, so I did do a little bit of research on it because I was actually going to make this an episode that I just... for those of you guys who have been following and kind of wondered where I vanished off to, the big freeze kind of stole my power because I'm in Texas. And that was the episode I was going to make that week. And then things just kind of got in the way, and my Yu-Gi-Oh channel just kind of became more omnipresent, and things happened over there, so I kind of had to focus on that. And so that brings us to today. And then, so for Spike versus Edward, the thing is that the Twilight vampires are just, I will say this, the author made them to be very imposing compared to other vampires. Like, I have seen other vampire shows where they have similar powers, but they don't seem as fast. A lot of them don't even seem as strong as Twilight vampires, and the Twilight vampires don't share a lot of the same weaknesses that a lot of regular vampires seem to have. So
That's what I mean. They're the Supermans, you know. Just because we all know Superman would win in a fight versus, you know, Batman, that's not why people like Batman better, you know. Yeah. Sometimes having them so indestructible to the point where there isn't a way to kill them makes them less interesting. Mm-hmm. So honestly, I feel like that's a huge fault in Twilight, is just how over the top indestructible they make them.
Mm-hmm. Compared to like the traditional.
There's just like no way to fight them. Yeah, like there's no way to beat them if you're not also, you know, a vampire mythical creature.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think that kind of takes away some of the intrigue, and it also leaves it so like there's nothing to do if you're a human. You're basically just like cattle for them at that point.
Yeah. That was going to be one of the other points I was going to make when I was going to make that video, is because a team of humans could kill and stop some of the oldest and strongest vampires in the Buffyverse. But a team of humans wouldn't stand a chance unless they brought thousands of man army with, you know, and maybe dropped a nuke or something on one vampire. You know, you'd see guys with bows and arrows were able to kill, you know, vampires from Spike's universe. Humans don't stand a chance in the Twilight one.
Yeah, well, that's also the same thing for Vampire Diaries. You do see that played off a little bit more. The character, I think that's one thing that they do a little bit better, is you do see groups of humans, and they do have to team up and do a lot of extra work, but it's still possible, and I think
where the Twilight one,
it makes things more intriguing. Yeah.
But the cool thing about the good thing for Twilight is that's not the focus. That's never been the focus. Yeah, they're like uber powerful.
That's why it doesn't bother me. Yeah. That's what I think Twilight is best when it's not trying to be a fight action movie. I think it's better when it's just psychological or peaceful. The environment is what makes it so beautiful.
Plus, I mean, like, there are beings that can fight them, and of course, the Twilight universe actually mentions, like, has the 3 different kinds of supernatural creatures that we know of. We have vampires. We have werewolves, and we have shapeshifters.
Well, I didn't.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, do you remember in the final story they talk about the werewolves in the book, and the blonde-haired one says that they're consorting with werewolves, and then Edward points out it's the middle of the afternoon. Because the werewolves are actually extinct at this point in the story.
Oh, okay.
Because the vampires actually killed them. There are no werewolves anymore, and and Edward in the book makes a comment about how the tribe that turns into what they call the packs. Well, they call themselves werewolves because they happen to turn into wolves, but they could have literally been anything. They could have turned into a panther or a bear. It's just that's what their tribe chose. So it actually, through Edward's word, it actually kind of implies that there are probably other tribes of people like the werewolves, like the werewolf pack in Twilight, that actually turn into these other animals. It's kind of an interesting idea.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to kind of expand on that universe, different things like, I don't know, mermaids or whatever. I mean, if you're already going to be going crazy, but...
Are we going to pull a Vampire Diaries? Because I think they did a season with that.
I need to finish watching that show, because I have no idea.
I don't remember.
I only
exactly.
just started it.
I know they have multiple kinds of supernatural people in that universe, too. They have witches, and I know they have werewolves, and I know they have vampires, and but I know there are other things in there. But
yeah.
So let's see here. I guess this would be a good point to lead into. I kind of took some notes, guys. So we could talk about like maybe the whole alternate timeline type of thing. Like maybe that was we were initially talking about it in regard to like Renesmee and Jacob, but we also but that doesn't just have to stop there. Like that could be used as a way to explore like the rest of that world, like like we just mentioned a second ago with the other kinds of shapeshifters, or with the actual werewolves. What were they like, in that universe? Like they mentioned they only transformed at night, but that doesn't but we don't know what they look like.
I find the whole addition of they're just shapeshifters, they're not werewolves, I think that's a really silly choice to go with. I'm fine with there also being shapeshifters, but I'm not sure why they wanted to make the werewolves not technically werewolves.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they went that route.
Unless she planned on doing an expansion where they were turning into other animals as well, but they don't, so I don't know why she would have chose that. I don't understand Stephanie. She does so many ratchet things.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be one of those things where you kind of have to separate the artist from the art, I think, a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, we also talk about how we've also mentioned in our private conversations that we're not exactly comfortable with with a lot of the things about the story. Like we like the story, but there are details that make us uncomfortable.
It's a good starting platform, but I think there's a few eras where, it could have been much better if there was multiple people working on it and not one lady and her particular biases, and I think it makes it harder to write fully formed characters.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's just like a lot of subtle racism and slight sexism here and there that could be definitely worked on for sure.
Yeah, a few problematic things.
Yeah. But I definitely think Jacob is done really dirty in the movies and the books, and I think he deserved better. I would say I'm technically Team Jacob, even though I don't have any ill will with either of the leading men.
Yeah. I think it's funny. I saw this joke on TikTok that was talking about it. It was like, the story is horrible. It's just, the lady is picking between two toxic men. How good could it have been? It's just kind of funny to me. That's Gondre the Wordsmith. If you guys want to check him out, that's who did that little skit with that, and I could giggle out of it.
Well, I think people generally get very mad at the character Bella because it's like, oh, she's touring and stuff like that, and I don't know, I find that kind of silly. I think part of the thing that makes the whole triangle upsetting is because there isn't really a right answer, because both are very good people, and it's all about choosing what kind of life path you want to go down. But yeah. I definitely think it could have been a lot better if they hadn't had Edward come back as soon as he did, or the reasons. I think it would have been much more interesting if we did get to see, Bella and Jacob have a full-fledged relationship, at least starting out.
Yeah. And
because I feel like there would be a little bit more tension there, but I think it feels less like a triangle and more like, these guys in a relationship and then a butthurt friend in the friend zone.
Sorry, I just gonna giggle at that.
And I understand that's why some people are upset, but, I think he has legitimate reasons to kind of hate Edward, from his perspective. Edward does a lot of really dumb, shitty things. Like, he leaves her completely unprotected while he knows that Victoria is still out there, and there's no reason why she wouldn't come to get revenge on her. Yeah. And I know this was probably just done for storytelling devices, but it doesn't make sense in the long run. He leaves her completely alone, unprotected, and makes her feel like he left because she wasn't good enough, which makes her feel extra shitty and insecure about herself. I know he says, like, oh, so that, she would accept me leaving. And it was like, what is she going to do? Just say, no, you can't leave, you're a vampire, you can run so fast.
Typical man.
But it also doesn't make sense because there's somebody... Also, Rose, when you read Midnight Sun, I feel like Midnight Sun was not a good idea. They make Edward look so much worse than he already did. Yeah. We know that Alice already knew she was going to become disheveled, pretty much a zombie once he left. Mm-hmm. And even with that evidence, is like, no, I know better. So it's just an asinine choice to make. I don't know. And then also, they shouldn't have a way of knowing that Jacob and Renesmee are going to be romantically involved through future visions, because she's not supposed to be able to see the werewolves or shapeshifters now in her visions.
Well, that was only a movie thing. In the book, they never showed that. I think they just put that in the movie for the audience to go, oh, that's so sweet.
Maybe they shouldn't. Who watches that and thinks, oh, that's so sweet?
I don't know. I think that was the goal as well.
I'm sorry, but Renesmee's life is a horror movie.
No shit. There's monsters in this movie.
God, as much... It's like, hey, sweetie, we have an arranged marriage for... See this guy who helped raise you? My best friend / ex-boyfriend? Yeah, he's your future betrothed. Aren't you so excited? Sorry, you're about 7 years old, and in this weird time jump loop, that makes you a full-grown adult. Now it's time to go boink. And then it's like, okay, sweetie, go make your half-human, half-vampire, half-werewolf babies with him.
I don't
Excuse me?
You know
Excuse me?
You know what? I just had this funny thought of, like, what if that's where the werewolves come from? Like, what if the half vampire people, like, when the blood dilutes enough, maybe it creates shapeshifters? I don't know. It's just kind of a weird thought. Yeah.
That's another thing I hate. Is that, like,
Because they talk about their chromosomes being similar in the book too, or whatever. They talk about, like, I don't know. The book is very strange. They tried to, like, add some kind of scientific level to it. And they tried to say, like, oh yeah, half vampires and the werewolves have, like, this similar, like, set of chromosomes or something like that. And that was, I don't remember. I just remember it was in the book somewhere, like in the third one, I think.
Yeah. And then Stephanie Meyer's like, oh, we need to explain how Edward gets a boner. It's because of venom. They don't have blood, but he gets venom boners. And it's like, who cared? Who asked?
Nobody.
Who asked?
You don't need to go into
who
that deep
actually
detail.
cares? Who actually, like, I mean, I know it's a funny joke, but it's like, I don't understand with these fantasy stuff where it's like, we have to explain how it works on a scientific level. We already know it's not real. So why would we care?
This is one reason why I like the vampires in a lot of other universes over Twilight, because they just fully embrace the mysticism of vampirism, and Twilight tries to, like, science-fy it, if you will. It's more science fiction than it is.
Why don't you scientifically explain why they sparkle too while you're at it? What? I don't.
I bet you there is probably a scientific reason why skin might look like that, but I don't know if that occurs in anything in nature or not.
I've seen somebody's skin sparkle and it did scare me, but at this point I feel like it was probably just snow particles or something. Mm-hmm. But for a second there, I thought maybe Twilight was onto something.
Yeah, one of the things I think that we also talked about was the imprinting thing, and about how everyone focuses on Jacob imprinting on Renesmee, but nobody focuses on how Jacob feels about imprinting before it happens to him.
It's so unconsensual on his part too.
Yeah, everyone talks.
They do him so dirty.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I
hate the concept of imprinting.
Yeah,
and I hate
the concept of imprinting. Would have been so cool if it had been more about protecting people that were, like, important to, like, the grand scheme or something, instead of it being, like, a romantic thing.
Right, like, if he ended up having to just, because she's, like, a chosen thing to change the outcome of the future or whatever, I don't think it would be so creepy, but
yeah,
the idea that we're all supposed to be just kind of chill, like, oh, yeah, I was secretly attracted to your egg inside you, and that was the thing that I was waiting on, and now that Renesmee's here, it's not there. Doesn't that mean he should also be constantly thirsting after Edward, too?
Might have been a better
If
story.
It's the sperm. I mean...
Could you imagine?
Honestly, I think that Twilight would be better if they just solved it by making everybody a throuple. Why didn't they do that? Edward does propose the idea of them being in a throuple when he's trying to get Bella to not give birth to Renesmee, but, like, what if they for real did that?
Just pull a Marvel Comics like they did with Wolverine, Cyclops, and Jean Grey.
Why not? See, I'm pro, instead of having these, like, famous love triangles, have these famous thruples, you know?
Yeah.
Everybody wins.
Yeah.
And why not? Why not? You know? And then Jacob could be like, you know, Renesmee's stepfather instead, but not in the creepy way, and
what are you doing?
And just be her protector for that reason, you know?
Yeah. Sorry, I just had to make a joke. But yeah, it's yeah. We liked Twilight. The concept of Twilight was really great. I liked the idea of a vampire falling in love with a human. It's very interesting. And I do think there are things that are kind of exceptions to the rules. Like, you know how, like, Edward is creepy? In like, that he, you know, smells her and all that shit, and, like, makes her sleep and all that, and, like, spies on her in her house. The excuse in my head is, well, he's a vampire. So his natural instinct has got to be eat. You know what I mean? I'm thinking like his brain goes more in the line of, like, a predator chasing food and not chasing a romantic partner. So his brain is like this weird, like, amalgamation of humanity and, like, primal, like predatory, like animals. That's what. That's where I'm trying to. That's where I'm trying to think. That's where his brain is going. So I attribute those actions more to him being a vampire and less him being just creepy as a person. I don't know. What do you think?
I think Twilight is just as much a horror franchise as it is a love story.
Yeah. It's a horror movie with a romance story in it.
I mean, they really do a good job of falling for the actual monster, and it...
Of course, this isn't the first story that's done that. I mean, look at Beauty and the Beast. It's literally a story where the person...
Except the monster is attractive, so it's all just about...
You heard it here, folks. The Beast is attractive, therefore it's okay. You fucking furry.
You know,
just kidding. Just kidding.
Don't bully me. The Beast was like my first crush I ever had, so... And my mom thought that there was something wrong with me. It's just like, what was it? I don't know. She was just like, okay, what about like all these other princess movies with the princes? What do you think about that? I'm like, nah, I like this one. She's like, that's not normal, sweetie. I was like, I want what I want. And I got really pissed off when he turned into a human at the end.
There's like,
so, do with that what you will.
That reminds me of a comic book I saw where somebody made a comment about that, and like Bella goes, I think you should grow a beard or something like that to like the Beast or something. I was like, yeah, we don't.
This would be better. I hate mostly just the voice change. You know, you really fall in love with the voice and the eyes. And once he's transformed, his eyes look dead for some reason. Like, he just looks kind of like a weird walking zombie man.
Oh, yeah, you mean like in the cartoon, right?
Yeah, what do you think I was talking about?
I don't know. I thought for a second you were talking about like the one with Emma Watson. Because he sounds the same as the Beast as he does as his human self. And he still has the roar for some reason at the end of that movie. But
I went to see that one in theaters and everything, and it was so bad.
I didn't think it was bad.
It was awful.
How was
it
awful?
Horrible.
They even had some decent songs in there from back in the day.
We shouldn't talk about this. We shouldn't talk about this. I will go down a rabbit hole, and it'll have nothing to do with Twilight. But I stand firm on my grounds. That was a horrible movie. It was a horrible movie. One of the worst reboots ever done. I hated it.
I am making a note of this for future episodes. Just because I will love to hear these things, but I'm going to have to put a pin in it.
I've got the Twilight graphic novel, which I only found out recently is actually rare, which is interesting because I got it at an Ollie's for $4, but they were only able to make the first 2. I haven't actually read it yet. I mean, I know how the story goes because I've read the books, or listened to the books technically, and watched the movies, but the art inside is just black and white, but it's definitely neat.
Don't they? And they make Edward, I think, handsomer than he's described in the book, in the graphic.
How do you make any of these characters more attractive? I hate when people try to say Edward was handsomer in the books. I'm sorry. Looks are completely objective, anyways.
Well, yeah, but no, what I mean.
Sorry.
With what I mean with what I pictured in my head, versus the, you know what I mean. That's what I'm talking about when I say that. Like versus like what the manga drew. I was like, oh, they drew him way prettier than I imagined in my head. Of course, I imagined pretty.
He just looks like an anime dude.
Anime dude looked better. I don't know what to tell you. His hair was also spikier than I imagined for some reason. My imagination was very mean to Edward. It kind of made him very pompous, and I always pictured
he is
slick hair. Like, and almost
that'd be ugly. That'd be ugly.
I almost pictured him a little bit. I don't know why. I don't know. I just pictured him kind of being.
You also thought Bella was redheaded and wore glasses,
no,
so apparently you're just an imbecile.
Not redheaded. I said in my head she had a red tint to her brown hair, and for some reason my imagination gave her glasses. I don't know why. I know that wasn't in the book, but that's just what my head pictured.
She's naughty. She gotta wear glasses.
You know what? That was like that's a product of the '90s right there. I'm sorry, I can't help you there. Nerdy people work.
You gotta go to conversion therapy for your millennialism.
For millennialism, you're so mean.
Sorry, y'all got to get your shit together. You're spending all your money on trips to Disneyland instead of you getting in there's so little money as is.
I think you're just jealous because we didn't invite you.
That's true.
I'm just kidding.
It always baffled me.
Oh
just like how much money is spent. It's like thousands of dollars that you're spending each year to go to Disneyland, and I never got it.
So, one of the things that we also I was wanting to talk about was like with alternate timelines and stuff. You mentioned you wanted an alternate timeline where Bella actually finished college instead of getting knocked up and married.
Yes. I think that would have, even just her getting a chance to go to college.
Yeah.
I find that so weird. That was such a plot device in the book. Mm-hmm. But that's also another thing that really makes the character of Edward horrible, is that he's constantly not respecting Bella's wants. Mm-hmm. And he's constantly trying to get her into, like, he was applying to colleges for her that were a lot fancier and high class, but when she wasn't comfortable with that. So I thought that was kind of annoying, but either way. And he insults her car because it's old and beat up and makes her drive a fancy rich one. And it really bothers me how much he insults her want for simpleness. And that's kind of another thing that makes me much more Team Jacob, because he understands
that reminds me of that
her desire for...
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, just, her desire for sentimental things versus flashy things. So.
Yeah, this is going to lead into what you were talking. What I was going to ask you about. Like, this is one of the reasons why Carissa's very Team Jacob, is because, and she pointed this out to me, and I was like, oh, I never thought of it that way. Because Edward gives gifts that are very expensive. Jacob gives gifts that are very time consuming. So he gives his time and his effort instead of money because he doesn't have it.
Well, even if he did, you should still get them something they want. Like, okay, Edward should be able to be spot on stuff, because he should, since he spends time with her so much, understand what she likes, what she wants, and there's nothing that he couldn't get her. So, I don't know, she loves the color brown, and she likes, fancy blouses. So what if he got her, like, a very beautiful blouse that was brown, and, he could get something handmade, whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because he's got the money.
Like, because he could do literally anything for her, but he doesn't. And it's like, okay, so you really like your truck, but I don't want it to be safer. You can rebuild the insides of cars to make it like, so the outside will be like an old car, but the inside is like a new car. Mm-hmm. I have a friend who I went to Auto Tech with who was doing that with an old truck that was kind of like the one Bella has. So we could have done something like that. We're like, okay, I'll get you something safer while still letting you have the thing you love, which was also a gift from her father, who she's going to, at the time at least she thinks, lose forever. And he's not even going to let her have, like, that thing he got for her, because it's something sentimental. And it's a cool truck. Okay? But also, it's constantly diamonds. At least the ring, despite how gaudy and awful it is, it's like a family heirloom. Mm-hmm. But that shit he pulled with the bracelet, I will never forgive him for. That was the shittiest, laziest, dumbass shit I have ever seen.
For those of you who don't
know,
for those of you at home who don't know what she's talking about, in the story of Twilight, Jacob the werewolf gives this custom-made bracelet with a wolf
that he handmade.
Yeah, and then Edward just puts a diamond on it. Just an expensive.
I'm gonna get you a big heart-shaped diamond and stick it on it. And it looks, I know it's supposed to be expensive, but it looks so cheap. It's gaudy. Okay, and it makes it just turn it into a charm bracelet, because I need to be represented. She's wearing your fucking diamond-ass ring. How many diamonds does she need to wear for you to go, ooh, like, think about that symbolism of the differences. Edward is cheap, materialistic, and he has everything handed to him. And Jacob is young, naive, trying his best. Mm-hmm.
I think that's
And
kind of...
he puts work and effort. Do you know how hard it is to carve something tiny?
Yeah.
That is a tiny wolf he carved from wood.
Yeah.
He had to take time, precision for something. And also, that was the same thing with the Dreamcatcher. Something simple he could make that is an understanding, like, I know you have nightmares. Here you go. I'm going to give you this instead of just watching you sleep.
Yeah.
When you have nightmares. Fucking idiot.
Yeah. I think this is the reason why you really like Jacob more than Edward, really, is at least with Jacob's toxicity, it can be excused as naivete and lack of knowledge because
he's 16.
Because he's young.
He's fucking 16. I get so sick of people going like, oh, Jacob is so, like, pompous and immature compared to Edward.
Well, no shit.
Edward is fucking 113 years old. He shouldn't even be attracted or going after a 17-year-old outside of pure animalistic, primal, I want to eat her.
Yeah.
Like, Jacob is well-intentioned. They were best friends ever since they were little kids.
The only reason I give...
He has reasons he has, like, genuine reasons to be in love with her versus... That blood smells nice, I'm gonna eat her, you know?
Well, the thing that I think is with Edward, and, like, this is the other thing that I think about, is I know that Edward's 100 years old, right? But my other theory with him is that being that he's a vampire, you know, and he is trapped at, like, age 17 or something, which I think is, like, the worst age to be trapped at, to be honest. Like, God.
Horrible decision.
Yeah, well, I would not... Oh, God, that'd be the worst. Like, who wants to be trapped as a teenager for the rest of their life? Like, fuck that.
You're gonna be having acne and social awkward tendencies your entire life.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing for Edward. He's a vampire, so he doesn't have to deal with that problem.
But it doesn't matter when his brain stops aging. He still has 100 years worth of life experience.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Technically, the human brain stops, like, changing at 25. So all of us... quote unquote, you know, are frozen there, but it doesn't matter because your life experience still makes a difference.
Yeah.
A 21-year-old's going to have a lot different from an 18-year-old because an 18-year-old hasn't had the ability to smoke or drink legally, and even though that's, like, small, that still makes a huge difference of life experience. That's why it's somewhat frowned upon.
In Twilight can get drunk. I wonder.
I don't think so because they can't consume stuff, period, outside of blood. They have to, like, throw it back up.
Yeah. I remember hearing something about, like, Edward would, like, I'm gonna have to throw this up later. This is gonna suck.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, like, you know what? I actually liked, this is where the Vampire Diaries did vampires a little better, where they could eat regular food, it tastes the same, it just doesn't provide any sustenance for them.
Yeah, it's like you still have to survive off blood.
Yeah.
Like, knowing that I'd much rather be a Vampire Diaries vampire, even if you're not going to be as tough, because I could still drink coffee. Yeah. And the idea that I'd have to give up coffee...
And you still can get drunk.
...is ratchet.
The Vampire Diaries vampires can still get drunk.
I love being drunk. Hell yeah.
So, this is... you know what's really funny is, I know this was supposed to be a Twilight thing, but we could kind of broaden this up to just vampire stuff in general. But the point that I was going to say is, like, I really do feel like the Vampire Diaries... Oh.
Uh-oh.
Help, I followed you.
Sorry, I have cheap stuff. That's okay. You know what? I'm just going to do this. I don't know what works better.
It's all good. I just was going to say, like, the Vampire Diaries are really some underrated vampires. Because even though the story is like Twilight-esque, where it is very heavily focused on the romantic side of things, it is, you know what I mean, it's... Then the vampire side of it stuff, you know, they're like Twilight in that aspect, but I feel like those vampires are more well thought out, and they have just a little bit of traditional with a little bit of modern takes, like the Daylight Ring. That's a cool thing.
The Vampire Diaries is the Parks and Recs to The Office. You know, they'd kind of already gotten a theme in mind, an idea, and now that they can see what's worked, which has made it more successful, they can kind of broaden upon that. Mm-hmm. So I think they had an advantage over Twilight. Plus, one thing I think can make it work a lot better is that you can have a team of writers working on these characters versus one lady. Yeah. And plus, you have it done... this is why I love TV show formats, because you can spend a lot more time on individual characters and slowly build things. There isn't this rush to tie everything up in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And that's why my favorite format is like TV show, Netflix show style of thing.
So do you think that if they were going to redo Twilight, let's say as a Netflix show, you know what I mean, where they had season 1 was book 1, do you think that would be a better mode of telling the story, and maybe would make our characters look less creepy, or maybe modernize the story to make it less creepy? You know what I mean?
I think, I don't know, I think the characters are all around going to be creepy, and that's okay. They're vampires, they're supposed to be creepy, and it's that thing of what level that is, like, we can talk about Edward doing the whole watch and sleep, but I'll still say, like, well, yeah, he should be creepy. He's a living dead creature. Yeah. But,
he's a guy who's supposed to be dead 100 years ago.
This is kind of the same thought process I had with The Labyrinth, where I would love to see it redone and focus in on the characters, and, like, because especially going through and reading the book, there's so much that is, like, watered down because they decided to make it into a kids movie. So they couldn't do things, they couldn't talk about how it's basically a metaphor for womanhood and being groomed. Anyways, but, you know, and I always, as much as I would like to see it done again, it's also somewhat sad to me because I feel like they had the perfect cast, and there's no way you're going to get anything that good again. I don't think there's anybody who could play Bella like Kristen Stewart. I don't think anybody could do Edward like Robert Pattinson. I like Jacob, and as much as I want to say no, like, they did a good job looks-wise casting, it would be nice to see an actual Native American man cast there, because even though he looks the part, still problematic. So I would like to see it done. I think it'd be really cool to see it in a format like that and maybe fix the story a little bit. I would like to see the ending done differently. If anything, I would love to see a version of it that, you know, maybe, once again, like, maybe, even if they do want to have them, you know, get teenage married, have them go to college still, or just, in general, please, 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 for the love of God, cut out the entire Jacob imprinting on Renesmee in a romantic sense. That would be lovely.
I mean, the only saving grace with that one is like where he says it's not like that. And you think Edward would let me live if it was? You know, where that's like
but then right after that they apply. It's like, don't worry, I'll wait till she's of age, and it's like, that's still grooming, bud. Yeah. That's still considered gross.
Yeah, I agree. I just was saying, like, that was like the only thing was like, well, the only good side of it is that now, I don't really say good. I use that term loosely for the record. I'm just saying that, like, the only thing is, like, he's supposed to act like a big brother figure, I guess.
And that would be fine if there wasn't the implication that they're going to end up together romantically.
Yeah.
And that's what they did.
You know what?
So I think that would be really cool to rewrite that and take it out.
You could have that whole thing, take that whole thing out, just have it be like a big brother thing or whatever. You know?
Yeah.
And then, like,
and I think that would be really interesting, like him putting aside his feelings for Bella.
Yeah.
And choosing
to save his child for the greater good or something, you know.
Yeah, I think that would have been much more interesting for his character. Like, I don't like the fact that his character arc has to be resolved by him finding somebody else romantically, but just sort of finding acceptance.
Yeah.
I think that would have been much more interesting. Like, I don't think love triangles have to be solved, you know? Like, your romantic partner shouldn't be, like, your end goal in life. Like, you can still be a fully developed human without that, and I think that's a really cheap way to solve it.
I'm just kidding. I was giving you the... How dare you, madam?
Listen, we all like a little romance, but maybe, like, somebody's entire purpose in life shouldn't be based around whether or not they find somebody to bone, you know? And plus, he's fucking 16. Maybe it's a little bit young to be worried about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like... And he's also in this world where there's these supernatural beings, and there's these factions of them, and it's... You know, I feel like there's just bigger problems. Like, I feel like if I woke up in a way and found out that the world was bigger than it actually is. Like, if I woke up in a world like Twilight, right? I found out like that was the real world, and the world I've been living in is a facade, I would be like, okay, I need to get power, and I need to figure out who are the bad guys, and how are we going to balance that out. And, you know, I'd be sitting there like, I would have all these, I would probably get PTSD or something from like all like, or existential dread from trying to figure out how are we going to solve all these problems, you know, because there's these monsters that are killing people. You know what I mean? Because not everyone, most of them don't live like the Cullens and their cousins. You know what I mean? Like most of them are very much like, you know, like Laurent and James and Victoria. They roam the countryside killing randos. Give me just a second. I have to time out. All right, let's get back.
Leah Clearwater.
Leah Clearwater? What about her?
Yeah. I really want to talk about her, and I think she deserves better, and her story is interesting, and she never gets any kind of closure for her story, and I think she's done dirty, and I think how badly her character is treated in the movies and books reflects a lot of the sexism in the story. So...
What was it? Leah Clearwater. I'm trying to remember who that character is, but now they've kind of escaped me.
You know how... So Sam, it was his original girlfriend before he imprinted on the lady he would end up with, which was her cousin.
Right. Leah's the girl werewolf in the clack.
The only one.
The only one. Why is she...
Do you...
Yeah, like that's...
Do you know her story?
Yeah, she was with him, and then he imprinted on the other lady.
Yes, but, like, why she's the only female?
No, I don't know why. Was there ever...
Because she's the only one who doesn't have the ability to bear children.
Wait a minute, is that the rule? Like, if you can't have kids and you're a chick, you have the chance of being a werewolf?
Yeah. It was, like, implied that they think that's why, because... You know, she never got her period, and instead she became a werewolf, which was established usually as only for the boys. And now her thoughts of her grieving the fact that her long-term love has left her for her cousin, now her thoughts are open for all of them to see, and he has to know exactly how much he hurt her all the time.
Ooh, man, That is such a complicated story because, like, you know, it's kind of like with Jacob and Renesmee. Like, you know, it's not exactly his fault that he can't help the way that he's forced to feel because of this supernatural thing. But at the same time, you know, that part of the story really does examine the damage and the impact. Like, these supernatural people actually, it almost, you know what this funny is? It almost makes it feel more realistic in the line of like, hey, yes, the power is cool, but you realistically in the real world, you wouldn't want this power because it comes with so many drawbacks.
See, I think that's another thing that makes the werewolves more interesting. Their powers don't have any kind of financial benefic. Like, you know, the vampires don't have to worry about food or anything, so they have a way where they don't have to spend money on things they don't choose. They don't have the ability to grow wealth over time through living forever. They have to still live in mostly the limits of a human life.
Yeah.
Also dealing, and their powers come with a lot of downfalls with the benefits continually.
I was gonna say, the only thing that the werewolves is they do have one way they can be quote unquote immortal,
through changing into a wolf regularly.
Yeah.
But that's not something. It's not like, okay, I'm gonna spend a day in the office and then I gotta make sure to spend this many hours as a wolf a day.
Yeah.
And you deal with that outside of dealing with all the existing racism and downfalls of already being a Native American.
Right.
In America.
Yeah. And then of course, like,
they deal with so much crap, and there's no reason why the Cullens are really cruel for continuing to go back there, because that's what triggers them to become a wolf, is when there's vampires nearby. There's no reason why they should be going there when they know they're going to be turning all these young teens into wolves whether they want to or not, because you're triggering their senses. It's a really cruel and unusual thing to do when they can go literally anywhere.
The only thing that I can think of as an excuse for the Cullens is that maybe they're not the only vampires that frequent the area, but because
still, but they know better. They know better.
Yeah, they know better, and they should know to
But they already know, so why would they continue to go back when they know that it's going to make it that much worse?
Yeah, I don't know. That was definitely something that wasn't really expanded on in the story. Like, if the Cullens know that their presence causes that, then you're right. They should just know not to go there.
Yeah, it's really cruel.
Yeah.
But anyways, Leah.
Yeah.
She has to deal with this hardship of, the person she loves leaving her for somebody else and just sort of sulking in that. Mm-hmm. She can't have children. She's treated badly by the other boys, and that's one thing that really makes me upset with Jacob is his lack of compassion for her. Mm-hmm. Because he should, out of anybody else, should know what she's going through. And they constantly mock her for her sad thoughts.
That's not really something that she or anyone can control.
Yeah.
Like, and also that's another thing.
And in the books, she's not given sorry.
No, I was gonna go ahead. You go ahead.
No, she's not given any kind of resolve, and it's treated as she's treated as a lesser woman because she can't have children, and that juxtaposition from her getting nothing she wants, loses her man, not being able to have kids, and then Bella getting any man she wants and getting to have a child and be praised for it. And I think it's like a really cruel thing, and Stephanie
also
treats her awful.
Mm-hmm. Also, it kind of has I don't know. There's a reason why Leah and Bella don't get along.
Yeah, and I feel like she's done so dirty, but there isn't this implication where, at least with Rosaline, you get a second to be there's a reason why she is, and you can see there's nothing wrong with her character, and she gets a redemption arc or a happiness. She doesn't do that for her. And it's really upsetting, because I feel like she had a chance to do something interesting with Leah and Jacob, and you kind of get to see a friendship bond. Yeah. But wouldn't it have been more interesting if they ended up together?
I was just going to say that. I was like, ooh, that would have been an interesting coupling.
They both, or even if they don't end up together romantically, which I think could be a very nice story, and finally one where the chick doesn't have to be a million years younger than the guy. Why every time?
Isn't Leah older than Jacob?
She is. Not by much, but she's older.
How much older is she? Do you know? Is she 18 to his 16 or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Old enough to the point where she can... I think she's probably closer to 20 maybe, but I'm just judging that by the age of the actress that they cast, but I'm not sure how old she's supposed to be in the book.
Yeah, I don't know.
But she's old enough to the point where there's not much there. Yeah. But
and also you mean them being a couple when he's a grown up, not when he's a.
I'm not even saying, but
not when he's because he's not 16 at the end of the book, is he? I thought he's 18 at the end of the book.
No. Okay. I don't know everybody's exact ages. Yeah. I'm more so going by story plot rather than age. Yeah. I'm just saying it's kind of. I find it weird, the fact that she's oh, he needs to end up with a baby. That's more of the part where I'm like, ugh.
Yeah. I think everybody was a little taken aback by that. Even I remember reading the book and being taken aback by that. Whoa, that's. And then I just kind of I to keep reading the book, I just kind of chalked it up to, well, this is just some weird werewolf vampire shit. So I just monster shit. Moved on. That's the way I looked at it. That's the way I looked at it.
Listen, you do not get to put this. Listen, you do not get to put this under my boy shit category.
No. I said this is monster shit. It's not the same.
I don't care. You're taking my thing. You're taking my thing, and I'm gonna gatekeep it.
I'm using it. I'm gatekeeping this. Tell you what I did so I could finish reading the book.
I'm gonna gatekeep my thing.
Well, you're not allowed, so I'm sorry. Gatekeeping just doesn't work that way. I'm gatekeeping, you're gatekeeping.
I want to talk about Leah Clearwater more.
Okay, fine. Talk about Leah Clearwater.
Okay, So wouldn't it be much nicer, instead of resolving Jacob's story, instead of it having him end up with a lady? And, I still am very much pro Jacob and Leah. I think but like, it's not an overnight thing where it's more of a love that grows, which I think is a lot better. Once again, why I'm more Team Bella and Jacob than Edward. Anyways, but his story more so being based off of him choosing to become the tribe leader and finally taking up that responsibility, and him getting to grow as a man, like as he slowly reaches the age of adulthood, him having to deal with protecting an entire tribe and training them, which he didn't even want to be a werewolf, let alone the leader of a pack, but it's kind of one of those things where it's like, I either have to do this or let
shit happens.
Yeah. And, I feel like it's already sad enough he doesn't get the girl or anything like that, but him, like, choosing to swallow his pride and take up the mantle of responsibility. I think that would make him...
Thing. It's the greatness thing. What's his name? Some of us seek greatness, some of us have... some of us earn greatness, and some of us have greatness thrust upon us. And that was Jacob. He's the last.
And I think that it would be neat to change the whole imprinting thing so it's not about mating and just more so about, like you said,
protecting important people.
Protecting. And I think that would be really interesting, like him going through the psychological damages of having to have a protection shield over the symbol of the girl he loves choosing somebody else. And through slowly over time learning, like, okay, this is actually a child, it's nothing evil. Him slowly learning to accept Bella's choice to not be with him as well.
Yeah, it'd be
instead of, I guess I'm in love with a baby. I just think that could be much better, and then I don't have to feel uncomfortable by Renesmee's existence. And also, take away the whole growing super fast shit. Okay, wouldn't it be way better instead of Bella, like, having to, for, like, less than a month or so, have to go through this weird supernatural pregnancy? Imagine for 9 months having to deal with a pregnancy like that. Wouldn't it make, like, that whole, like, they don't say in the movie, which makes it a little bit more forgivable, but I feel like if they had Renesmee just grow like a normal kid, she just happens to also
like in the science of it, her body would have fallen apart way before it got to
but like and it's still this thing of, like, it's slowly killing her because, it's too strong for her. I feel like that would make it so much creepier, like having to, like, have your corpse ass looking wife walk around with her, like, I just
like she looks like a skeleton lady with a pregnant belly.
I feel like that would make, one of the things I hate most about Bella's arc is how much they cheapen her, because they make it so she has to go through so little in comparison to the other women. Like, it's like, oh, magically, because she's a shield one, she doesn't have to deal with controlling her thirst for humans. I think it'd be a lot more interesting if she does have to go through some hardship. There are consequences for the things she chooses, like keeping Renesmee. I would love for at least some of the characters to die in that battle instead of it just being all a vision. Even if we're not going to have our main cast die, which I think it could have been so interesting if it actually did end with Bella and Edward dying. That would have been so good.
Yeah. That would have been interesting. Because, like, I thought it was, I did think that was interesting, personally. I enjoyed that vision fight. Although, I really just wanted, like, really wanted to see the Volturi, like, get theirs so bad at the end of that story.
Well, it doesn't make any sense that everybody's just kind of like, la-di-da, this Volturi, which is evil and corrupt, we're just going to let them live on. That's such a weird ending to your franchises. We'll just all go live in peace and just... It's like the American government's equivalent of, I know there's, like, terrorism going on and we're having these slaves, make our genes for us, but it's not happening in front of us, so we're just fine with it. And it's like, whoa. You're going to end your story arc like that?
Well,
and once again...
And here's the other part of that, right? Like, even in the book, they mention, this might be a battle for another
okay,
day.
And what if Jacob and Leah Clearwater finally start to, like, pursue a romantic relationship, and and then the paddle comes, and then as soon as he finally like moves on off of Bella and is okay with it, then she dies along with the other girl. Imagine how much growth could go to his character.
I got a mean story idea. 100 years into the future, the werewolves have had to keep transforming because they have to protect the humans, and the good vampires are helping and all that stuff. And in the war with the Volturi, Edward dies. Jacob's like, my point, my time. I'm sorry, that's a horrible joke. I'm sorry, I'm just picturing like Jacob being like, so.
I don't know. I think it would be so much cool. Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry, just corny jokes. Excuse me.
I don't know. I think they did a lot of these characters dirty, and I think it would be much cooler if Bella actually did go through a little bit more hardship. Like, I understand she does go through a lot, like, already with having to go through this, like, insane pregnancy, and I do think that was one of the best choices they had for a character, is just, I think it's such a symbol of how far she's willing to go for the people she loves, to the point where it is damaging to herself. And we have seen her do similar things, like going in the ballet studio for her mom. And to kind of take that to an extreme point with the symbol of motherhood, it's cool. I love it, but, you know, it's like after that, it's like, ooh, poof, I love being a vampire. Like, I think it would be much more interesting to see her have to cripple with the downsides of also being a vampire. Like, I could still see it being this thing where she doesn't regret the decision she made.
Do you also
but there's just things
Bella
like, imagine if she couldn't control her for her father, and she had to spend time away from him. That would have been so much more interesting.
I was gonna say that. I was literally.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
sorry.
No, I was trying to say, ooh, I know where you're going with this, because like that was kind of a cop out for her. And I always but that also kind of makes me question of it, like how much of it was mind over matter. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Because it made me go, why does Bella not have this problem with the thirst, but like Jasper struggles with it?
Well, they did explain it. It's because she's a shield, but and I still love the idea of her having like shield-esque powers, but I don't like the idea that it doesn't mean that, like, oh, so things just don't bother her. I think it's a lot more interesting if she has the ability to protect other people, but she doesn't, like, she still has to deal with issues that affect her, because that would kind of go along with her story plot, you know?
So that also makes
I don't like the fact that her thirst is taken away from her. I think it really cheapens her as a character.
You know, that also makes me wonder about how other vampires have other talents. Like, it almost makes me wonder, like, well, then how many of these, like, what are the different talents have a different impact? Like, you know what I mean? Like, Jasper his talent is he manipulates emotion, right? And therefore,
yeah, and why is there's one thing they do in New Moon where apparently he's able to control her emotion so that she's more likely to choose, like, okay, Alice, like, you can take it. So if she's a shield, how can he do that? Why is it the Volturi's powers don't work on her, but that power works, and also Alice is able to see her future?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, does it?
Once again, I hate how inconsistent certain things are, and I think it would be much more interesting if, like, Alice didn't have the ability to keep tabs on her because of that.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just, I'm nitpicky, I know, but it bothers me. It really bothers me.
You know,
also, F Jasper, so...
Well, also, I think that for me, I think Jasper's powers make more sense that they wouldn't work on her than Alice's, and here's why I say that. Her power always struck me as, oh, my head is protected. All right, so like mental-based powers don't work on her. You know what I mean? So, like, for example, that's how it always appeared to me. So I agree with you that Jasper's powers shouldn't work on her because that's very much a mental-based power, like Edward's, like Aro's, like Jane and and her brother. They're all mental-based powers. That's what they were described as in the book. It wasn't like a physical attack, like you know how in the movie they showed him having that black gas or whatever that would come out. In one of the Volturi's, I don't remember Jane's brother. I don't remember his name, but that was how they described it in the book, or you know what I mean, or not in the book. In the movie, that's how they showed it working. But in the book, that wasn't a physical thing. You know what I mean? It was just a power he had that came from his mind.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very Professor X type thing, and her powers always struck me as that was the kind of shield they were. They were like, oh, I have a natural defense against psychic-based attacks.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas that other vampire, the blonde, from one of the cousins, who had like a physical-based shield, where, you know, anyone who touched her just went, you know, ah, you know. So, I don't know. It's very, the rules of the vampire's powers are not consistent. I agree with you on the frustration there. But this is where I think Alice's powers... Also, the wolves being shielded from Alice like that doesn't make any sense to me at all.
I don't know
Because
why
they're
they
not...
chose to do that,
Yeah,
but
it doesn't make sense. Here's the other part where it doesn't make sense, right? Why are the werewolves not subject to Alice's powers, but they are subject to Edward's?
yeah,
Make that make sense.
I don't like that.
You see,
I don't. Yeah.
there are a bunch of these inconsistencies. Like it would make so much more sense if the werewolves were like, oh yeah, we're just immune to all vampire powers except for the physical ones. You know what I mean, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're showing a cow.
I just figured they're being cute, so I should record them and appreciate it.
You're just making sure this video gets.
Can you hear them?
Yeah, I can hear them a little purr.
Yeah, I just love the little purrs. Oh, my little polka dot man.
You're just trying to get the video more likes with the cats.
These are my babies. These are my babies. I don't know. Walnut did leave, but I at least got this man over here. Hi.
But
Hi.
I think we kind of covered everything, except we really just shat on Twilight with this video. We didn't talk about any of the good things about it. You know what? Let's
I could talk about the good things. I also have a lot of complaints, you know?
Let's talk about the, this is the final thing we haven't talked about, is we've kind of noticed the Twilight Renaissance on TikTok, and that I think that would be a good thing for us to end this episode on. So, what do you think caused the Twilight Renaissance?
Quarantine.
Like people just started watching.
Twilight there's a lot of things that I think people grow to appreciate when they have the ability to rewatch them over and over again and see something new each time, or see that there's it's not the type of thing that you get sick over. I think that's what makes things. Like The Princess Bride, it was not a hit when it came out, but then when people got it on VHS tape, it was like, wow, this is something I can keep watching over and over again and not get sick of. So it became a cult classic. And I think that's the same thing with Twilight. It's something that you can notice something different every time you watch it. It's got so many gorgeous visuals, the story, there's a lot that you can argue with. So there's so many different paths you can go down. Twilight, I think, works so well for things like fan fiction because there's so many different interesting things you could do with it. So a lot of people kind of like, oh, this is kind of where I would like to see it go. This is what I would like to see it go.
I want Charlie Swan, Vampire Hunter. Let's go.
I think Twilight would be much better from Charlie's point of view, but I think as a detective, not a vampire hunter.
Yeah.
Team Charlie. I am Charlie.
That was by the way, this is the other reason I brought this up, is because I've noticed a influx of women who are in their 20s and older who loved Twilight when it first came out and were all Team Jacob and Team Edward, and now they're all like talking about the older characters like Carlisle and Charlie.
Well, that's exactly it. As you become older, it's like, wow, I realized this is the one. Charlie, there is no such thing as a sexier man than Charlie. Oh my God. He's so many things that should be hateable. He's a single dad. He is a cop. He's white. And somehow he can be all of these things and still be the perfect man. It's amazing.
I'm gonna get... That's just funny. I just find it funny. I just like I see these women, all the ladies swooning over the actor who plays them too. They're just like, woo! Didn't realize he was so... That also reminds me, like, we were also talking about this last night. Guys, we were talking about this whole, like, the book versus the movies. Because we came across this article that, that was talking about how the actors don't look the way they're supposed to. It was kind of funny. Carissa,
You should find things like that and save it for the day of. You always
I
do
know. I
this.
always forget these things. You know, it is. I'll get work. Hey, this is episode 1. Okay, we will get better at this as we go. All right. This is just an episode 1. All right, guys. So I think we're gonna end it there. I think this was a solid episode. We got everything. We talked about the creepiness of the Twilight monsters. We've talked about alternate realities. We've got kittens, beautiful lady. And we've got all sorts of other stuff in here. So, guys, do us a favor. We haven't decided what to call this like podcasty type thing, and we might make it the channel name. So, do us a favor in the comments below. Give us an idea of what we should call this whole little series me and Carissa are doing, because we're gonna try to get together like once a week and talk about random stuff, and I'm gonna try to get better about having like more visuals and stuff on here and all that good jazz. So let us know what you think. And Carissa, do you have anything you want to say before we head out?
Team Charlie.
Team Charlie. We're all Team Charlie here.
All my homies love Charlie Swan.
Remember to like and subscribe. Bye.